Alright, I thought it was about time for a new video. I've been in my new apartment now for about 1 month. I'm still in a dedicated man cave or war games room. So I've set it up and am still setting it up. My little tribute to 2001, another favorite movie of mine, Gone with the Wind. Of course, the games collection, which is always continually in evolution. Some books, models, Sink to Bismarck. And I don't know if I get to this wall or not. Well, yeah, there's a tribute to the Odyssey and Death of Wolf, Roman Trireme, and another favorite film of mine, Little Big Man. But what we really want to see is the game that I'm going to be looking at. And this is John Paninsky's Plains Indian Wars, and it's published by GMT. Now, one of the things I want to get cleared up at the start is my prejudice against games with little meeples and little wooden cubes, things like that. I'm not a Euro game player. So when John's game about the Indian Wars was in development, and I watched its development carefully, I knew in advance that it would have these little wee cubes and things like that. It had some great looking cards. But I was kind of prejudiced against the game from the start because of my prejudice against these kind of games. No knocks against the games themselves, because many other games have been quite successful with it. I'm thinking here of Academy Games Series 1775, their War of 1812 game, 1754. Mark Herman has used it in his Pericles game. It's just that I'm not excited about little wooden blocks. So I had a barrier in a decision to purchase this game. But watching the videos that people have done on it and seeing the reviews of the game, and since I have an interest in the Indian Wars, I decided to purchase the game. And letting the cat out of the bag, I can just say that this is one fantastic game, and I'm very glad that I bought it. Now, I will not be teaching you how to play the game. Too many other people have done very fine videos on the game itself, so I don't need to repeat all that they've done. All I'm going to do is show you some of the components and the pieces, which you can see from the other videos too, and tell you why I like this game and why it is such a good game. Now, one of the reasons I love John's Plains Indian Wars is that it reinforces everything that I've visited, collected, and read about the Old West. And this map I have here, I've just put pins of the historic sites I've visited. Now the red pins represent the Indian Wars, and the blue over in the east here I've got Civil War sites, Revolution, and War of 1812. So I've gotten as far west as San Francisco. I had to get into California to see Bodie historic site, one of the best preserved Old West ghost towns. Got up here into Idaho and Montana, Custer Battlefield, of course, the Big Hole Battlefield. Down here in Texas, been across the Kansas, the plains, visited the sites of the Sioux Indian War. So this is one of the reasons I really liked John's game. I also visited the Council Bluffs Union Pacific Museum, and that was quite an adventure. So that's one of the reasons I like John's game so much. It reinforces the travels I've done to these sites. Now, whenever I visit a site, I'm always sure to pick up a pamphlet that usually has a map and lots of information. And here's an example of some of the sites I've visited: Golden Spike, Washita, Sand Creek Massacre, Scotts Bluff, the Big Hole Battlefield, Jefferson National Expansion Memorial, and the St. Louis Arch. This one really freaked me out because I had no idea you could actually go up inside that arch. Fort Union, New Mexico, and the Southern Plains, Fort Bowie in Arizona, and the battle at Apache Pass, and of course Little Bighorn Battlefield. And I visited a lot of forts too, and other battlefields. For example, a Rosebud battlefield. Fort Caspar. Fort Phil Kearny, one of my favorites. Fort Craig, Civil War era and Western battlefield. The El Camino Real, Fort Gibson, and of course Monument Valley, which is not technically on John's map, but that's neither here nor there. This game is specific to the Plains Indian Wars. Custer Battlefield, of course, Scotts Bluff again, Reno-Benteen Entrenchment Trail, the Battle of San Jacinto, Texas, and of course the Alamo, and Bodie, which is a very good ghost town if you ever get the chance to go there. Now, another influence in my decision to buy John's game are games that have come before, especially these Indian Wars games designed by Michael Taylor. One of my favorites is the Battle of Adobe Walls. I was invested enough and interested enough to actually visit the site of Adobe Walls in Texas, and that was a good 2.5 day drive to get there, but I loved every minute of it. Of course, his Battle of the Little Bighorn, and I had to get the companion volume, the Battle of Rosebud Creek. So he's got 3 in that series. Now, more recently, I bought this Canadian West game called Prairie of Flame, which is about the Northwest Rebellion of 1885, designed by Mark Woloshin. I've yet to play it, nor do a video on it. Now, I was influenced by other games like Gunslinger Avalon Hill, well, that was man-to-man combat, and Worthington's Cowboys game. Now, some years ago, I designed my own spaghetti western game, which is a man-to-man level game, and I've run it successfully at our local Can Games convention for many years. We've got trophies, and we have a lot of fun with it. We can actually play up to 12 to 14 people with it. It's got cards in it, my own rules, pretty easy to learn. Made my own box here for it, and these are the box I used to keep the little painted figures. I don't paint all that well, so I won't bother showing you what they look like. But that's another influence on me. I wanted more games on the Old West on a different scale. Now, I am familiar with the games done by Joel Toppin, his Navajo Wars, History of the American Southwest, and his other game, Comancheria. And I think he's doing one on the Apache Wars now, too. I do not own any of those games, though. I'm not sure if they're my bag. They cover quite a long period of time, but there's no question that I was influenced to buy John's game after knowing of the existence of those. Another huge influence for me is the films that I grew up with. Now, I'm very loath to use Hollywood films as sources, historical sources, but this video is about influences, so they have influenced my choices and decisions in life and what I buy. But How the West Was Won was a terrific film, made in Cinerama, but I didn't ever get to see it in Cinerama. We didn't have Cinerama in Ottawa. But that's a big epic film. In the 60s, 70s, okay, then another influence was the semi-spaghetti western Valdez is Coming, Burt Lancaster. I thought that was a terrific film. The very controversial film Soldier Blue, made in about 70, 71, which shows the Sand Creek Massacre, took place in 1864. In Canada, we've got our own series called The National Dream. It was a series, and almost impossible to find on DVD. I was able to make a DVD copy from VHS and stuff, but most of these movies I had in beta, VHS, now DVD. Slowly I'm converting them, getting Blu-ray copies. There was the terrific Ken Burns series, The West. Excellent. More recently, Tombstone. I thought that was a great movie about the gunfight at the OK Corral. That's one of the places I had to visit when I went down to the West. So I actually went to Tombstone and saw the site and where the OK Corral was. And again, another controversial film, Little Big Man, which was more of look at the American West from the Cheyenne point of view. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it's not my intention to show you how to play the game. I want to show you the components and how it fits in with my desire to play it and why I bought it in the first place. Well, even though it's got the little wooden blocks and cubes I'm not really crazy about. The black cubes, for example, are used to build a railroad. So as the white man's civilization advances across the West with these brown cubes representing settlers, you can start building the Union Pacific Railroad across the plains. At the same time, in the West, way out of Sacramento, you can start building the Western Railroad out of Sacramento. Much more difficult to build because you're hacking through mountains. And the game ends when the East and West meet, wherever that will be. As we know, they met at Promontory Point near Salt Lake City. That's almost like your turn record. When these two meet, the game ends. Each of the major factions has their own deck of cards. The brownish ones are the settlers. The orangey ones here are the southern tribes, Southern Cheyennes, and the green are the northern tribes. Now these purple cubes are Indian tribes that are enemies of the southern and the northern. They are not their own separate faction, but are moved actually by the cavalry player with his blue cards and blue tokens. And like many of the cube games, combat occurs when enemy forces are in the same area. So what the white man is trying to do is extend his civilization across the West at the expense of the red man. The red man is trying to oppose that. Now my son and I should mention the wagon trains, you're right. The white tokens, they are kind of cute. I like them. So you've got these lumbering wagon trains going across the West, trying to get off the board at the West, and when a wagon train exits, it gets victory points. So you've got two opposing factions fighting it out. You can play it 4-player, which is another kind of bonus about the game. Now I played my first face-to-face game last week. I took the white man's forces, the cavalry and the settlers and the enemies of the Indians, and I slowly tried to make my way across the plains building the railroad. And my son with his Indians was attacking me, and I tried to hold him off, and it was a great game. I lost. I think I lost, like, he got 12 points and I got like 6, so I got massacred. My son had good strategy, and I guess I fumbled the ball. So I'm anxious to play this game again. So this won't be a very long video. It's really, as I mentioned, it's about the influences and the decision to buy kind of thing. I like it because it captures most of the things about the West I've read about. It's mostly there. I mean, the settlers, the cavalry, the Indian warriors, the wagon trains, the building of the railroad. But the only thing that's missing from it, perhaps, is the outlaws, and that would be a whole different game in itself. So if you like games of the Old West, I'm pretty sure you're going to like this one. Now, there's been a lot of hoopla about the rule book. It's It's about 15 pages long. A lot of whining and complaining about how it's written. There is a solitaire booklet too. Apparently it plays very well solitaire. Now, having designed a couple of games myself, I know that the rule book is the hardest thing to do in a game. It's very hard to write a comprehensive and complete rule book. And the whiners and complainers are usually people who have not published a game themselves. If they had any idea of what you have to go through to get a game published, they might maybe shut up. I don't know. Anyway, you can play this game right out of the box. Did I have a couple of questions about the rules? Yeah, I did. But common sense usually prevails. You can usually find the answer if you read the rules. They're not maybe laid out the best way, but they are fairly complete. But the odd case might come up that is not covered in the rules. Well, guys, it's a simple game. Use common sense. And with that, I rated the game, I think, 9 out of 10 on Board Game Geek. I think it's a fabulous game on the subject. And thank you, John, for creating it. I think it is a great game. Thank you for watching.